Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our final episode of the Golden Key online conference titled Thriving in a Pandemic. If you are joining us for the first time, you have missed out on such an exciting week, but worry not, because you'll be able to access all of these videos on the Golden Key South Africa YouTube channel. On Monday, we spoke about service and how it is so important to have that as a part of your life. On Tuesday, we spoke about how to become part of the Billionaires Club. Yesterday, we learned about leadership and how to take action. And today we are going to learn about some other incredible things from our guest speaker. My name is Alma Acob, and I'm going to be your host for today. First things first, just some quick ground rules. Please make sure that you are muted at all times throughout the discussion. Also make sure that your video is switched off so that we can give our speaker all the attention that she deserves. Also, throughout the session, make sure to make use of the chat room by sending all your questions there. And at the end of the speech, will I then be able to ask all the 8 questions that you are posing to our guest speaker. Now, for those who are joining who are not Golden Key members, Golden Key is an international honor society that recognizes the top 15% academically excellent students from over 400 universities around the globe. And now, without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to welcome our guest speaker for today. Dubbed the Medical Wonder Woman by Startup Africa, 28-year-old Dr. Nokukhanya Khanyile is the epitome of what hard work, commitment, and passion can achieve. Having qualified as a medical doctor in 2015 after completing her Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery at the University of Witwatersrand, Dr. Khanyile has broken the mold of a stereotypical doctor. Boasting a following of more than 100,000 on Instagram, with me being one of them, Dr. Khanyile uses social media to engage, educate, and uplift her followers. She actively promotes physical and mental wellness in both her everyday regime and on her social media accounts, which also covers beauty and lifestyle. Advanced Media honored her work and influence on the youth when she was nominated as one of the 2019 100 most influential young South Africans in the science and technology category. She was 7th overall in the whole ranking that was done. Now, please help me welcome Dr. Nokukhanya Khanyile with her talk, which is titled Mental Health During the COVID-19 Pandemic Period.
Good evening, everybody. I hope that you're well. Hey, let's go. I say yes, let's go. I just want to say thank you so much to the Golden Key International Society for allowing me to come on board, and especially the Southern Africa branch for allowing me to come and really share something that's really close to my heart. I think a lot of people don't understand mental health, and because they don't understand it, it can be quite difficult. And I hope with my little bit of 30 minutes of time, I'll be able to open your eyes. So if you don't mind, oh no, so if I can please ask the host to allow me to share my screen, because I have prepared a presentation for you, just so that I will be able to do that. That's perfect. Okay, so we'll go into this, and I'll play this. Can I please get a heads up from Alma if you guys are able to see my screen?
It's currently loading. I'm just waiting to see if...
You know, in a time of coronavirus, this is an incredibly difficult time. We're confused. Nobody knows what's going on. We don't know why it's happening. We don't know. I mean, we have some ideas as to how it happened. But the thing that's really important about this time is that we found that our mental health has really been tested. We've had to see a lot of people spending time away from loved ones, away from work environments, away from people that really have kept them sane, some would say. And now we're told to isolate, which is actually one of the symptoms of depression. And now we're telling people who are already feeling so alone that they're forced to stay away from people. Not just because of a mental illness, but because of a potential physical illness that could lead to some pretty bad consequences for some. And so we are really in a position where we can't say that the future is going to look a particular way. We are in a position where we don't know what our jobs, our employment is going to look like in the future. We have entire governments mobilizing in incredible ways to make sure that the the health of the population is maintained. But while the physical health of the population is maintained, what does that mean for the mental health? Alma, is my screen sharing?
Unfortunately not.
Oh no! Okay, so that's really unfortunate because I had such a beautiful presentation coming.
Do you want to maybe
I
try
see
the
that it's
process again?
sharing. Oh, wait, let me do this. Let me do this. Let's share that one.
There we
Is that
go.
coming through now?
Perfect. Yes.
Ah! Okay, perfect. So we're going to be speaking about mental health. Sorry, it is my technical savvy that's missing in those situations. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Dr. Nokukhanya Khanyile. I'm currently a pediatric registrar, which means I'm a studying pediatrician in training, and I will be done in 2024. So you guys have time to make the humans and the clients for me. I am also a part of the Golden Key. I was inducted as an honorary member in 2018, excuse me, via the UJ campus. And I just want to say thank you so much for such an incredible honor. And I'm so glad I get to contribute and join you in talking about this. So we'll be speaking about mental health in a time of COVID. So let's talk about coronavirus. Since December 2019, there were a cluster of cases of pneumonia of unknown cause that were reported in Wuhan, which is in the Hubei province of China. In South Africa, we've had over 640,000 cases that have been reported. Interestingly enough, South Africa has one of the highest recorded recovery rates, which is incredible news because it indicates, number one, that we did incredible measures as a country, evidenced by social distancing, which is why we're having this platform online. Hand washing, sanitizing. I always have sanitizer very close to where I am, and also making sure that we have had to wear masks to protect ourselves from getting the virus from one another. But because of all the incredible measures we've had to go through, we find that mental health has started to suffer. And so I just wanted to start off with some definitions that really talk about what mental health is in this country and just in the population at large. So according to the World Health Organization in 2019, mental health is a state of well-being. And this is in which an individual realizes his or her own abilities, where they can cope with the normal stresses of life, they can work productively and fruitfully, and also you are able to make a contribution to your own community. So if we just break this definition down a bit, thinking about a time such as this, it is a state of well-being, which is what we aim to get to. And well-being is basically determined according to wherever you are. So people in African or rural, urban, non-urban, and people in a third world versus first world countries, they will all have their own societal definitions of what well-being is. And so I will not define that for you. I will allow you to define that and allow you to retrospectively and introspectively think about what well-being means for you. It's where you as the individual realize your own abilities. And I think coronavirus has thrown us off because now we're having situations where people can't be in a workplace able to showcase their own abilities. Also, if you fall ill because of the virus, your own abilities are limited. So we already have one of the criteria of this particular definition of mental health being impacted. We then ask for people to cope with the normal stresses of life. And I don't know about you, but living in South Africa outside of a time of coronavirus is already so abnormal. With the increased numbers of gender-based violence, we have so much trauma in our society. We also have people experiencing higher levels of crime, and also just traveling to and from work can be incredibly dangerous for the average working person who may have to take multiple taxis. You're not able to see your family because you leave before the sun rises and you're back before the sun after the sun sets. And we have so much to do nowadays, especially us young people, the millennials, as they call some of us, the born frees for some of you. We're expected to achieve such high goals and targets that we can't really say that we have normal stresses. We don't have 9 to 5s like our previous generations did. And then you add now coronavirus on top of it, where we have fear about our health physically. We also have fear about our security for our jobs. That's not a normal stress. And then having to deal with isolation and staying away from people because of the potential to infect people. We find that we're in an abnormal situation. So that's already two things that qualify mental health being thrown out the window. And then also having to work productively. Like I said, we're having to do things online. Sometimes in a country like ours with load shedding, you don't have Wi-Fi. So you have to leave the house, increasing your chance of exposure and potentially making you unproductive and not fruitful in your environment. And also having to make a contribution to his or her own society. How do you make a contribution when you're unable to leave your house? How do you make a contribution when people can't see your face? I always say that my smile and the way that I talk is one of the ways that I use to connect with people. So how am I going to do that in a situation where I have to engage with you online? Do I need to change the way I contribute to my society? If I am sick myself, can I make a contribution to my society? And does that contribution help my mental health become maintained or not? And so importantly, I'd like people to really focus on this. It is not just the absence of mental disorder. The World Health Organization added that extra bit because a lot of people work with so much dysfunction in their lives, even though they're able to meet the normal expected tasks of their life. But you see people not sleeping, not eating, trying to hustle, trying to push the boundaries of what they're able to do, all for that success, all for trying to maintain normal day-to-day needs and requirements. So we need to make sure that we're not just diagnosed with mental illness, but that we protect ourselves from getting to a point where we feel the strain and the consequences of mental illness. And so this is why we also need to talk about burnout. I haven't even gotten into coronavirus on its own and all the implications there, but burnout is a syndrome resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed, and it is characterized by 3 dimensions. And I really want everyone to think about this because I've been diagnosed with burnout so much. So one is the feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion. That's probably me whenever I'm post-call, whenever I'm on call, whenever I'm about to go and leave. Increased mental distance from one's job. And I think everyone can relate with this. It happens, towards the end of the week when it's Thursday and you're getting to Friday. It happens towards the end of a block for people who do rotations. You're almost at the end, you're just about to finish, but you just can't do it anymore. Students, if you guys are studying, I know this happens as you're about to get to that final exam. Your brain is just done. You just don't want to do it anymore. The work is getting more and more difficult to study. And also things like reduced professional efficacy. You used to be able to read 3 or 4 essays in a day, and now you can't even read 3 or 4 lines in 2 weeks. So it's about really understanding that you're pushing yourself to the limit. It's because you're not understanding what it is that is pushing you to that edge. And while I want to talk about the effects that coronavirus is having and how we're going to really help ourselves heal, I really want to go into this because when you understand how you get there, you can be more aware and say, hold on, I'm at a difficult place in my life. Mental disorders, we'll just go over quickly, are behavioral or psychological syndrome or pattern, which is something that happens over and over again, kind of like burnout. It's a chronic process that goes on and on. It reflects an underlying psychobiological dysfunction. So psycho being how you think about things, how you interpret your life, how you react to stresses around you, and biological, how it works within your body. And it's a dysfunction between the two, which are consequences of which are significant distress or disability. And it's difficult to say this one because some people's threshold is higher than others, but it doesn't mean that the stress is not significant. And it's not merely an expected response to common stressors and losses or culturally sanctioned response to a particular event. So what we mean is, like I said, different populations respond to different things. For example, death, disability, loss of a job, etc., in different ways, and they have expected responses. So what we're saying is, in a time like coronavirus, what is an expected response to getting ill? What is an expected response to be telling people I can't come to work because I have to isolate? It's quite difficult to work around that, and we actually have to change our definitions now because of it. And lastly, it's a result of social deviance or conflicts with society. So where I talk about schizophrenia in one population, it could be symptoms or features of uctwasa in another population. So we need to be aware of that so that we're able to really say, in my context and where in my life, this is actually throwing me off and I actually need to start taking care of myself a lot more. So when we talk about burnout, there are 12 stages, and the earlier stages are excessive ambition. And this is for people who may have been fortunate enough to either have started a job just before coronavirus hits, or you actually got a job now, and now you want to hold on to that job. It's excessive ambition. You wanting to make sure that you do everything possible to stand out at work. You want to give people a good impression of you. So you are working late hours. You're making sure that you're doing every single project that could potentially come your way. You're, some people call it sucking up to the boss. You're making sure that you're on every call possible. But that could be a problem because you get to the next stage, which is pushing your limits. Are you able to really stay up until 11, 12 o'clock every night doing all the things that you asked, you offered yourself to potentially do, or you took on because people asked you? You then self-neglect, and now it's like, you know what, I'm very tired, but I'm going to drink Red Bull, and I'm going to make sure that I have a lot of caffeine on my plate. I can't afford to lose this job. I can't afford to look bad. Self-neglect is also, do I really need to go to gym today? It's fine. You know what? I just will ignore the gym, and I'll make sure that I move on to another project that I need to do. And also conflict displacement. You may have had a family responsibility that you needed to attend to, but you couldn't now because you've taken on so much work responsibility, or you've put yourself in so many different places. We then talk about changes in values, and that's where we start to see the commitments that you really had to important people, your mom, your dad, your best friend, changing because you're telling them, I have more important things to do and it's not you, and I have to actually work on this. We even start seeing people lying. You start losing your commitment to those things where you say, it's just the traffic, that's why I was late. But it's actually because you were exhausted, you couldn't wake up this morning. We start talking about denial and shame, where you can't believe you took on so much, but you have to keep doing it. So you feel so horrible about it. And people can see that you're actually cracking at the seam, but you're like, I'm totally fine. I'm completely on top of this. But are you? Are you really? Are you able to show up for yourself every day? And then we talk about social withdrawal. And this is the one where we already are socially withdrawn, where we're expected to stay at home. But now when people call you to check up on you, you'd rather cancel it because you can't handle your mom telling you about another story about how tired you look, how you need to take care of yourself, how you need to eat better. You then go to behavioral changes. You become snappy with people at work. You become snappy with your family. You just want to leave everybody alone. You start turning towards things like drinking, substances, even caffeine is a drug. And people turn to that to help them cope. And then we move on to identity confusion, which is where you can't, people often say, friend, I don't recognize you anymore. I don't know who you are anymore. And that leads to an inner emptiness because you're pushing the people away because you're trying to actually do the things that you've committed to, but you're losing the people around you. And that's when we actually get depression, and some people even get to collapse. Collapse could look like anything. It could look like a mental health admission. It could look like something where you are unable to get up in the morning. It could be suicidality. Collapse, it doesn't necessarily have to be a drastic event where other people see how bad things have gotten, but it could be enough for you to be pushed to the edge. And I hope I've ticked a lot of boxes for people where people are actually recognizing and realizing what it is that I'm saying. Because this could be you. You could be at any one of these points. And I know whenever I go into a new block, excessive ambition, I am always wanting to push myself to the limit. And then I start realizing, I'm going to start letting go of the things that are important to me. Burnout can also be broken down into 5 phases. So the honeymoon phase, I'm very excited. This is going to be great. I can totally do this. With the onset of stress, you start realizing maybe I took on too much on my plate. Chronic stress, where the things you have to do happen over and over and over again. Moving on to burnout, and eventually habitual burnout, where the cycle continues. And how it happens is you'll see with people who do rotations, students who do New Year's. Every year towards January, you get honeymoon phase. Woo, we're going to have a good time. We can do this. We've got this. Your vision board is set. And as the year goes on and you don't realize your goals and you start realizing that the stress becomes more and more, and you're almost at the end, and then December comes, everybody's having a good time, and then January, let's go, new year, new me. So it's a constant cycle, and I think it's important that you recognize that cycle so that you're able to catch yourself before you burn yourself, if that makes sense. So I just want to go into depression's impact on the economy. You as an employee need to be efficient. You need to be able to show up to work because your contribution, not just to your job, will have an impact on the place where you're working, which is an institution that has an impact on the economy. So what I'd like to really focus on is, while 218 billion rand is lost in productivity because of depression, 190 billion rand, which is just to the center, is attributable to presenteeism, which means attending work while unwell. That could be because of physical illness, but more importantly, mental illness. So how many of you, and I think I've done this many times, show up to work, but you are actually burning out? You're so distanced from your job. You're snappy. You can't concentrate at work. You're making mistakes. You're so tired because you're doing back-to-back calls, back-to-back Zoom meetings. You're not able to separate work from home because you're at work, at home, and you're not productive anymore. So how much of this is actually contributing in a negative way to not just your performance, but your economy at the same time? And I think we need to make sure that we maintain our own mental health, because we can then help others. You cannot fill from an empty cup. This is another stat, and this is for those of you who are managers in environments. And I'd like to go to the first little infographic with the gentleman who's in a suit, where we talk about a manager's response to disclosure. And so while it's important that we take care of ourselves, what happens if I'm at a point where I actually need to take a mental health break? How do I disclose to my managers, and will I get a good response? Will I get stigmatized? Will I get discriminated against because I'm coming out and I'm reaching out for help? And this is an interesting one because it's almost evenly split, where 39% are indifferent. As long as you're showing up for work and you're doing the job, they don't care as long as the targets are being met. 31% are positive or even helpful. Those would be managers, for example, who ask and understand that your referrals you may need less working hours, you may need reduced workload, you may even need to have time off because you need to have a mental health admission or mental health breaks that will help contribute to your productivity in the workplace. They may even be helpful where they refer you onward to the HR practitioners who are able to get you the help, to the social workers in the department that you work in, if you have that facility available. But I want to talk to the 30% of managers who respond negatively. And I would like to ask, if someone had to come to you in your department and say, I am suffering with mental health, will you be able to respond negatively, indifferent, or positive and helpful? And for those people who are only going to get 31% of the managers who are going to be positive and helpful, that's really scary to know that almost 70% of the people I speak to are going to either be indifferent or negative towards me. That needs to change in the workplace, and especially in a time like coronavirus, where people are working from home and there's a difficulty with separating the boundary between work and home. We need to be sure that as managers, as people who are leaders, future leaders, current leaders, experienced leaders, are we making sure that we are able to handle with someone coming to me with this problem? So the CDC, if you go onto their website, which is the Center for Disease Control in the world, basically came through with this incredible guide on their website of how to cope with mental illness during a time like coronavirus. And so I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this, which is number one: stress during an infectious disease outbreak can sometimes cause the following things. So number one, fear and worry about your own health. And people forget about us worrying about the health of a loved one. How can I perform effectively at work and in my job if my mom, dad, sister, brother, partner is in hospital or even ill with coronavirus? Your financial situation or job can cause you to have stress, or even fear, worry about loss of support services you rely on. And what we mean by this is, for example, something like a restaurant could be a support service because people go there for a break. They need a time off, time away from the office, time away from home, just to get a break. That could be a support service. And people don't realize that that actually has caused a lot of distress for people. Support services like healthcare, Now you can't just walk into the doctor if you're just feeling a little bit off. You need to really think about the fact that, do I want to risk going into a place where there's a lot of people who potentially have illnesses, not just coronavirus, that are in an environment like this? Stress during infectious illness can also cause changes in sleep or eating patterns. So these are the following couple of things I'm talking about are important, and you'll see why. Difficulty sleeping or concentrating, worsening of chronic health problems, asthmatics, diabetics, hypertensive patients, people who are suffering already with mental health issues, as well as worsening of mental health conditions, and increased use of tobacco and or alcohol and other substances. Again, because we're looking for coping mechanisms. And these are all mental health challenges that get amplified, worsened, introduced because of a situation like this. And so what I'd like to introduce to you is what we have known for years at the university I trained at, which is the biopsychosocial approach to taking care of yourself. So biologically, we need to sleep. People think I don't sleep, which is a myth, because I sleep an average of 7 to 9 hours a night, depending on the day that I have and if I'm not on call. Sleep is incredibly important for your brain. It helps you cope with stress, but also for people who have demanding jobs, it helps you become efficient at managing your moods, managing your performance, and how your concentration is increased. So if you're not sleeping and you've already got all the stress from a chronic outbreak, as per the previous slide, we spoke about changes in sleep. If you can't sleep because you are already in a position where you've got a mental illness, that's important. You need to take note of your sleeping patterns. And also, if you need things to help you fall asleep. You need to make sure that your sleep health and your sleep hygiene is important. And there are various ways you can do that. You also need to eat well. Oh, eating. I think I'm very bad at this, because anyone who knows me from Instagram and social media knows how much I love food. When I'm post-call, when I'm about to go into my period, when I'm stressed, when I'm sad, I just want to eat everything I see. But I've had to learn that because I'm working in such a dangerous, high-risk environment, I have to eat well. I have to make sure that I maintain my vitamins, my minerals, my multivitamin supplements in my diet. Because if I don't, I'm not only going to be, my body's not going to be healthy, but I'm not going to be able to be strong to be able to fight any infection that comes my way, not just coronavirus. Eating is also important, because when you get those good minerals, your mind is nourished with the right vitamins. Things like folic acid, omega-3, 6, and 9, they help strengthen your mind so that you're able to deal with stresses a lot better, but also allow your concentration and your performance in the workplace to improve. We need to drink water, ladies and gentlemen. Not everything we see, but water, because our bodies are 60 to 75% water. Especially people who are exercising, muscle is about almost 80% water. So we need to make sure that we're hydrated. And also, if you think about the fact that your brain sits in fluid and your brain is just this soft jelly, if you're dehydrated, you can actually cause more problems, because it's difficult to concentrate. It's difficult to sleep properly when you're dehydrated. And then you start looking for all these other things that help you feel better: juices, cold drinks, energy drinks, which also can further dehydrate you because they don't help you keep that water in your body. Drink plain water, and there's so many ways you can zhuzh it up. I add fruit to my water. I drink sparkling water on some days. I drink plain water on the other days. Whatever you do, make sure that you drink enough water. And I always say to people, you must at least drink 1 glass of water, so 250 ml a day. And then for every 10 kilograms you weigh, add an extra 250 ml. So for example, if you're a 50-kilogram person, that would be 250 for each of the 10, so that's 1.25 liters, plus an extra 500 mils. Sorry, I'm confusing everybody. Okay, let's start again. If you're a 50-kilogram person, that is 250 mils for each 10 kilos that you weigh, so that's 1.25 liters. with a baseline of 250 mils. So at least 1.5 liters a day. And that's important because not everybody's the same. We're not all the same weight. We're not all the same body shape. And it's also important to make sure that your doctor has cleared you to be able to drink increased amounts of water. People who are hypertensive, diabetics, sometimes shouldn't drink too much water for whatever medical health reasons they have. And so please do check with your doctor about the water intake you have. And then move. Anyone who knows me on Instagram knows how much I love my trainer Watson, even though he tries to kill me, and I don't think he knows I can actually die. But I enjoy exercise because it helps me move emotions out of me, and stressful situations need movement. It's very easy for us to snap at our family and our friends whenever we're upset about something. But when you move that out of you, do kickboxing, do burpees, because trust me, you can't be angry when you're in the middle of a burpee. You're just too tired to be angry. Just make sure that you do some kind of physical activity, walking around the block, walk with your family around the block, making sure that you're wearing your visors or your masks and having your sanitizers so that you're safe, so that you can at least get some kind of physical exercise. You need to release those endorphins from running and that cardio that it does. It helps improve your mood and also helps regulate the hormones in your body. When we move on to the second one, the psychological aspect, and this is the difficult one for people because I think as a society, we don't like asking for help. We don't tell people that I'm not okay. And so we need to at least share with someone who's close to you. It could be one person, even if it's not a person, it could be a journal or some kind of documentation so that you're able to reflect back about how you're feeling and prepare. And what I mean by prepare is if you know that there is something big that's going to happen in your life. Someone is ill. You are ill. Prepare yourself psychologically for what you feel you might expect. So if someone is currently ill and they're potentially going to die, you actually have to talk yourself through, how would I feel if this person dies because of coronavirus? How would I feel if I lose my job because they are retrenching at work? How would I feel if I get ill and I have to be admitted to the hospital? And I've had to do this multiple times. And some people say it's like creating a war room in your head. You're strategizing. Not that you're feeling the emotions and you're like having doom and gloom, but you're allowing yourself to really say, when this happens, I've at least expected what's going to happen. I know who I'm going to call for help. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure I have the right food in the house so that I'm not binge eating. And I'm also going to make sure that the support systems are in place for me so that if my daughter, my child, or whatever needs to be taken care of because I'm in the hospital, I know who I can call. So create that war room in your mind and make sure that you prepare yourself for any eventuality, not because it's going to happen, but because you want to have some kind of support when it does happen. It can also do wonders for your mental health to know that no matter what happens, I've got a plan. The last thing is social. And I think, this has been one of the toughest things for me because I work in the hospital. I have been so strict about seeing my mom, not seeing my mom, not seeing my dad, my brothers. That's been very difficult for me, and not seeing my friends as well. So talk as much as you can. Talk on social media, talk to your family and your friends, talk to your neighbors. Write down, talk to yourself, do some mirror work, talk to someone, because I honestly feel like once you get that load off your chest, you feel a lot better. We need to be physically distanced but socially connected. So share with people in your lives how you are feeling. I'm not okay today. I'm fine today. I had a good day. I had a bad day. I'm incredibly scared about X, Y, and Z. And I think once we use words like scared in public, we're able to help each other realize that we're all scared about the same things, and it might make us feel a little bit better about it. And also phone one another. We are so lucky in the age like we are today that we have phones, we have abilities to video call, we can share online like this. I mean, there's so many people already on this talk. So we really need to go into that. And I think the one thing I didn't add on here is cry. I don't think we cry enough as human beings in today's society because we got to be tough, we got to be strong. And I cry all the time. I cry when I'm happy. I cry when I'm sad. I cry for 10 minutes. I cry for 20 minutes. I cry for 2 minutes. Anything that helps me remove that feeling off of my chest, because coronavirus is incredibly stressful. I have no idea who's going to come into my hospital at any point, who I'm going to interact with. And I could potentially get that at all points. I could lose my job because they might say that no, they don't have enough money for any doctors, so we can't bring you on. There's so many people who are in that position. And so I say to you at home, don't worry about what could happen. Worry about what's happening right now, which is you have a job or you are applying for a job. These are the things you can control right now. And if it feels overwhelming, babes, then cry about it, because I don't know what else to do sometimes, but just cry and pray and say to God, help me. So my parting shot is this. If depression is continuously seen as a weakness and something that people make up to receive special treatments or paid days off work, or those suffering fear for their jobs, then neither the stigma associated with depression nor the lack in productivity and loss in revenue will change. This statement was said by the chairperson of the Psychiatry Management Group, Dr. Sibulelo Siape, and it's very important because whether it's coronavirus or not, we still have to do the basics. And I don't think as a society we focus enough on just the normal things that make us human beings: connection, eating well, exercising well, and making sure that we are keeping our minds and our bodies strong. The coronavirus is just an added stress. But I found that people, even before this pandemic hit, people who are successful at really communicating their feelings, really making sure that they do the things to fortify their minds by taking supplements and making sure that they have psychologists that they speak to, friends or family, religious leaders, people in their lives that they can really share with. I find that those people are a little bit more resilient. But having said that, this is an incredibly abnormal time, and I don't blame anyone for feeling overwhelmed, even if you per se might not think that it is an overwhelming thing. I think we need to be kind to one another. We need to understand that my stress response is not your stress response. And we need to be patient, and especially as future leaders, we need to understand that people are not the same. And because of that, we have to make sure that we arm ourselves to be strong for not just the world, but for ourselves, so that when people come to us for help, we are in a good position to stand up for them. You can get in touch with me, and this is my contact details. My name is Dr. Nokukhanya Khanyile at Dr_Khanyile on Instagram. And if you just search my name on any other social media platform, it's most likely to come up. I don't think there's another Dr. Nokukhanya Khanyile running around, but I haven't looked, so there could be one. Otherwise, you can email me, drnokukhanya.khanyile@gmail.com. And if you have any queries or anything, holla at your girl. Please reach out to me. And I want to say thank you so, so much for this opportunity. And I will stop sharing now. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khanyile. This was an incredible talk, and I've honestly got pages and pages of notes because you were just giving out these quotable nuggets. Pardon? Oh no, that wasn't you. Okay. You were just giving out these quotable nuggets and amazing things that we're going to be tweeting about for the next weeks to come. And I love how you spoke about how it's so important to be kind to one another, but also to be kind to yourself. And also how you spoke about the importance of crying. You know that feeling after you've cried and you've had a wonderful sleep and you wake up and it's just like there's this newfound energy that you have because you were able to just leave it all out there with tears. And so so much stuff that I've learned from today, but I'm going to go straight into the questions because we do have quite a few of them. So Akutwa wants to know that we currently live in a high achievement generation, which has made burnout a thing. It's almost trendy for you to say, guys, I got 1 hour of sleep last night. It's trendy to say that you're doing so much that you're burnt out. So how do you think, or how can you advise us as youth in this high achievement generation that we can achieve, but also keep our mental health intact?
Get rid of the notion that you have to, I have to. Do whatever is most productive for you. I am a morning person. By 9 o'clock at night, babes, I am tired as hell. Unless I'm on call and I've taken all the Red Bull and caffeine in the world, you're very rarely going to find me awake anything past 11 p.m. sometimes on even nights when I go out with my friends. So I think we need to get rid of the idea that in order to be successful, we have to. What you must do is be successful according to your standard, and the world will adjust. If you know that so I work with naps. Okay, that's the one thing I think has really helped me. And so when it comes to doing things and making sure that all my targets are achieved, if I know I have a late night, I take a 45-minute nap, and that's something that I've found helps. Even with learning, you don't have to learn hours and hours and hours. I, for example, learned by doing an hour a day, and that gives me about 5 to 6 hours a week. I don't have to block that time out on a Saturday or a Sunday. Other people find that, they need to learn using media. So they use YouTube, writing notes down. People need to be successful. Some people need to work in a block of a chunk. Some people like me do things a little bit every day. You need to find what works for you, and that's why it's difficult to take advice from other people, because they're not you. And so even with your goals, I feel that if you have the goal there, and if you have it on your wall and you see it every day, your life just kind of adjusts. And as long as you have your targets and you stay disciplined and you make sure that you do everything you need to each day to get to that target, it will happen. But it's the discipline, not the not sleeping, not the pushing overnights, not chowing course. Those things are not going to help you get there. It's the discipline of sticking to your goal that's going to help you get to wherever you want to go. And your life will have to adjust, because your family won't just stop being your family just because you're writing an exam next week or because you have a deadline to meet. You still have to factor them in. And so just be disciplined with your time. Say no. Say no.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. And I love that point that the world will adjust, because that's one thing we're always scared of, that if we don't follow this blueprint that has been set out by world standards, then we'll somehow have to change ourselves. But like you said, accordingly, the world will adjust. Secondly, Nkateko would like to know that how can I help a friend who thinks they're okay, but I can clearly see that they aren't, because they're obviously going through this phase of denial, and I want them to get help. How do I approach that situation?
That is such a great question. I think before we even get to how do I help a friend, I think you must also know your limits as yourself. And this is why I spoke just about the managers in the workplace. But when you understand what your response would be, then you also know what your limits are going to be. Because for someone to ask for help from you, you actually have to give of your time and also some of your emotions, because it can be quite heavy, whatever they are going through, and they need you to help them through that. So understand your limits on your time. What are you willing to do? Are you willing to listen to your friend, talk about what they're going through? Are you willing to check up on them? Also, are you willing to, maybe if they need it, financially support them? That's not saying that I am or am not going to do that, but you have to know what you're willing to do before it happens, so that when they do come to you, the first thing is you need to allow them to have their process. And I think that's difficult, because there are some cases where you can have an involuntary admission for someone to a mental health institution, but those are extreme circumstances. You have to be able to prove that they're a danger to either themselves, to others, to property, or to the people around them. And that's very rarely ever going to happen with a friend of yours, but you can already see that they're going down the road. So firstly is allow them to have their process. Secondly is really talk to them about it and speak to them and see why they don't think it's a problem. Because I think when you understand why they think they're coping, you can then come towards an understanding and say, because some people think, no, friend, I have to not sleep. I have to, 2 hours a night is what I have to do in order to succeed. When you then realize that they think that's their belief system, you can help them realize that this is not healthy, And then the third thing I think is also, when you understand where a person is and when you understand your limits, you also need to help know the resources that are around you. Because if, for example, someone is going through depression, there are groups like the South African Depression and Anxiety Group. But do you know that your local clinic can also admit someone for depression? Do you know that you can actually go to this and this hospital? Do you know the mental health institutions that are around you? And when I say that, it's like it sounds all doom and gloom, but they're incredible places like Akiso, or even some of the private hospitals have wards that are just like, they're like houses, but there are wards because they're in a hospital. So do you know that? And would you be able to refer them across? And also, would you just be able to listen to your friends? So I think really be aware that it's a long journey with someone who is not wanting to get help, but don't let that stop you from understanding what their process is.
Mm, mm. And you spoke about businesses and as well as managerial lack of concern when it comes to mental health. And I just want to bring it to a family perspective now, especially in Africa where mental health awareness is a relatively new phenomenon. And a lot of our parents don't really understand when we say that we're experiencing burnout or when we just lounge around and can't do anything, and they see that as laziness. So how do we go through this process of trying to explain that this is actually, I'm struggling with something with my mental health. I'd like to get some help without this whole, that dark gray cloud that just hovers over the whole idea of mental health when it comes to African families. How do we approach that situation?
I always say, as a mental health advocate, I always involve people in the process. So what I try as much as I can to do is to say to people, if you are going for therapy and if you are, with your family and they're not understanding, your psychologist or your psychiatrist will not mind bringing your family in and actually sitting down with them and understanding their concerns, hearing what they're saying, and also trying to explain to them from whatever point of view they have what is happening with your mental health. The second thing, I'm just going to take off my glasses just because of the reflection. The second thing is, it's okay for your family to have no idea about what's going on with you. And I think a lot of people want their family's support and they really want them to understand them because you want them to help you. You want them to love you and understand what's going on with you. But if they don't, that's also okay, because mental health, especially for people who are very traditional, people who have a very religious point of view, can be difficult to understand because why aren't you giving it to God? You don't have enough faith, you know?
Mm,
And so it's okay for them to understand that they don't understand. What's not okay for them to do is for them to break your boundaries and to
yeah.
cross the boundaries that you set with them, which says that I am on my medication, so I need to continue taking this medication in order for me to be okay. You saying things like that's rubbish medication or it's nonsense medication, or saying you don't need that to be okay, or discriminating against you is not okay. So I think it's important to establish boundaries with your family, number one, and bring them in as much as you can. Involve them, show them this is the medication I take for this, it helps me do this. This is how it makes me feel. The doctor said that this medication will make me gain weight. Would you guys be willing to exercise with me? This medication may make me sleepy. Can we have family times that are a little bit earlier so that I'm not so sleepy? Speak to your psychologist and psychiatrist as well, because they'll be able to help you incorporate, do things that make your family feel a part of your mental health journey towards healing. And you'll find that something as simple as having a family meeting does a world of wonders, because they may still not understand it and they may not accept it as something that they would do, but they accept that it's something that you need to do, and because they're your family, they will love you and they will support you through it. But it's just a
Mm,
little bit of education sometimes.
yeah. That goes right back to your point of be kind to one another. Even if you don't understand, just be there and be kind. We've got another question which states that COVID-19 has disrupted community networks. It would seem that mental health interventions are more often solely geared towards individuals, whilst ignoring the wellness of communities as a whole. So how do we address community healthcare?
That is an incredible question, and I honestly don't have the correct answer for it. I think there's so much that we still need to do.
Mm,
Again, I say it starts with the individual. If you in your workplace are an advocate for mental health, so as a manager, as a leader, as someone who works with other colleagues, you are the kind of person who checks up on people or refers them appropriately, if you can see that they're struggling, and not in a judgmental or condescending way, but genuinely asking them about their mental health. Someone who promotes mental health in the workplace and saying, okay, guys, we need breaks. We need to take a time off our screens. We need to make sure that we stop WhatsApping about work after a certain time, and make that a priority in your workplace. You'll find that you champion that in your space. On a bigger level, I find that local government really needs to push mental health awareness. And the reason that we don't have the supplies and the resources for it is because it's not a resource that we use. We're so used to dealing with things on our own, and we're so scared of reaching out to people because we're going to be seen as weak, that the government doesn't know how big the problem is, so they don't allocate those resources. So I would encourage you to go to your local clinic and say, I need the help. Because then they can advocate and say, look how many people are coming to us. We need the resources. Medical aid schemes, I think, are incredibly horrible at helping people get mental health support. So at a community level, I'm telling you, go out there, get the help. But when you go to the place to get the help, they say, no, we can't help you. The lines are too long. There's not enough funding. And then lastly, I think from a community health perspective, we need to advocate for health in our homes. Are we checking up on one another? Are we making sure that we are okay? Because unfortunately, it's going to take a while for the government to kick in and help us out. But until then, we can help one another out. And that means even the people you don't like at work, hey, you need to also make sure that their mental health is okay, because that's probably more important than anything. The conflict that we need to deal with in the workplace probably contributes more to mental health and mental illness than anything else. So we need to make sure we have workplaces that are conducive to supporting mental health. And that is important, especially for managers in those situations. I hope that answered your question.
No, I'm sure it did. And just the second to last question, and some people have given suggestions in the chat, but I'd love to hear what your opinion is on this. Do you have any specific tips to give when it comes to struggling with sleep? There is obviously sleeping pills, but then there's a lot of studies that show that sleeping pills are not the way to go. So how would you advise people who are struggling with sleep in such a way that my eyes are closed, but my mind is still moving? So how do I sleep?
Oh, so I think you need to, like you're saying, you need to understand why you're not sleeping. So are you not sleeping because your mind is racing, because you're thinking about work? Are you worried about a family member? Are you worried about something that you can actually do something about? Or are you worried about something that you can't do? So things like coronavirus, am I going to have my job? I have to keep working because I have to make sure that I have a good impression. You must just work. So you have to condition your mind into accepting some of the things you can't change and then moving on to the things you actually can do something about. Having said that, sleep is one of those things that really reveals a lot about what's going on in your life. And the reason I say that is insomnia. Are you staying awake to the point where you can't sleep? Are you waking up multiple times in the middle of the night? Or are you waking up in the middle of the night and then you can't fall back to sleep? So there's different definitions of insomnia. Can be caused for many different reasons. So sleep hygiene is important. What I mean by that is about 3 to 4 hours before bedtime, you should not be doing anything stimulatory. And that's difficult for us because we're on Instagram and we're watching memes the whole day. That's a stimulation. We're watching TV and we're seeing bright lights. That's stimulatory. We're also chatting to our friends and family. That could also be stimulatory. So we need to start winding down and physically and environmentally changing our circumstances so that we're telling our bodies and our brains we're going to sleep now. You may even need to get lights that are dimmer in your house so that you're able to, when you put the lights on, it's not those harsh white lights, but it's a little bit of a soft yellower light. Instead of watching TV, and like this is difficult for me because whenever I think read, I go back straight to sleep. But some people actually need the distraction of a book. It's not a TV, it's not a bright light to actually help calm their mind down. Sometimes for people who have kids, reading them the bedtime story can help you calm down and also get you into the mode of sleep time. Switch off your phone. Work will be fine without you. And I think that's very difficult because we're so fixated on making sure that we don't miss anything. We don't want to get shouted at by our bosses. We don't want to get be seen. We don't want to be seen as the lazy ones. We just want to make sure we're always on but no. After a particular time, tell your work, I'm not answering emails. I'm not going to be responding to work calls. I'm done.
Yeah.
However, for some people that's difficult because that's just part of your job and that's how your job works. Like I'm on call. I can't just switch off my phone. Like I'm on call, But you really have to have that downtime and make it non-negotiable and speak to your employees or speak to your employer and say, this is what I need because I'm struggling to sleep because you guys are blowing up my phone at 10, 11 o'clock when I'm trying to wind down.
Yeah.
And the last thing I can say is stimulation drinks. So don't drink caffeine after 3 p.m. because the effects can last up to 12 hours. So imagine now you're going to be stuck at 3 o'clock in the morning. Sugary drinks, fizzy drinks, alcohol sometimes can be a stimulant for some people. For me, babes, one glass of wine, pass out. But for other people, it can be quite stimulatory. So try as much as you can to wind down towards the end of the day. And just switch off the lights sometimes and prepare yourself to go into bed. The other thing is also waking up. So I think we tend to wake up now and go. So what I do is I set my alarm 30 minutes before I'm supposed to wake up so that my brain knows, okay, I need to come out of sleep. And then I wake up at the time that, and it's one of those nice alarms. It's got like a very nice, like birds chirping type of like ringtone. So it's not like gang, gang, gang. It wakes me up slowly. And then by the time it's time for me to wake up, my brain is awake. And you'll find that that might actually help you fall asleep again because you're easing into the day so that you're easing back out of it. That might be some tip that helps for people. And also the last thing is have a dark room. If you need to sleep with the eye things and also sleep with earmuffs or earpads, your phone is fine. You will hear it. Don't worry about, but I have to hear my alarm. You will hear it, okay?
Yeah.
So put it even on silent so that it vibrates. But make sure that it's not set so that people can phone you and bother you and keep you awake. I hope that helps.
No, it does. Thank you so much for those tips. And like you said earlier on, do what works for you. So some people might like this and some people might like that. I, for example, love sleeping to the sound of rain because it makes me think it's raining, and it hasn't rained in Pretoria, I think, all year. So if that works for me, that's my thing. And if it doesn't work for you, then that's your thing. So I really want to thank you so much for today, for coming here, for speaking to us and for motivating us and teaching us. There's a lot of things that we need to unlearn, and there's a lot of things that we need to learn, and you've really taught us how to take care of ourselves, and I am so eternally grateful for that. And I'm sure everyone else who is tuned in is walking out of here feeling like hoo-ha, like we are about to start some yoga and meditation and drink some tea and just be at peace with thyself. And I'm so grateful for that. Thank you, Dr. Khanyile.
Awesome. Thank you so much to the Golden Key Society, and have a good evening, everybody.
Awesome. Before you leave, everyone, apologies for the car in the background. We quickly want to show you a video about our Do More Foundation. As you do know, Golden Key is encouraging that we participate with a lot of service activities. Service should be part of our lives. It should be the air that we breathe, and it shouldn't be something that requires so much from us. And so here is a video to teach you, to let you know about the Do More Foundation that Golden Key is getting involved with. Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Katie. For everyone who has tuned in this week, thank you so much for tuning into the Golden Key Alumni Online Conference. It has been amazing. To quote Zenzo, it has been a golden blend between motivation and therapy, and I could not agree more. Please make sure that you are aware that you can find all of these videos on Golden Key South Africa YouTube channel. Make sure to follow at Golden Key _alumni on Instagram, and Please be sure to post on various social media platforms saying what you enjoyed about the session, your quotable quote moments, the notes that you decided to take down throughout this entire conference, and use the hashtags #thriving in a pandemic, #YesGK, and #GKSA. It has been a wonderful week, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Good night. God bless.